Today we have two resolutions. Madam Clerk, would you please read 7A?
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a second agreement to exercise option to renew with Diagnostic Radiology Consultants, PA, in substantially the form attached to lease 173 square feet for an X-ray examination area at the City of Chattanooga Well Advantage Center, with rent in the amount of $250 per month for an additional term of 1 year.
Okay, seeing no questions, let's move on now to 7B.
A resolution authorizing the Chief Human Resource Officer to execute a final option to renew a professional service agreement with Diagnostic Radiology Consultants, PA, to provide diagnostic imaging services for city employees, retirees, and their dependents at the City of Chattanooga Well Advantage Center beginning January 1, 2020, and ending December 31st, 2020.
Seeing no lights, that concludes this part of the agenda session. There is no departmental report today. So now, at this time, I will turn the chair over to Public Works and Transportation Chair, Councilman Mitchell.
Can I get approval of minutes?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. You're gonna what?
Plus, the names are crazy on your thing also.
Oh,
Not gonna let that stop us from getting started.
so welcome to the Passenger Vehicle for Hire Board meeting. All right, we're going to start with, it looks like have a couple of resolutions for transportation. So, Mr. Bailey. And these are resolutions on today. Please read 7D.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a proposal with the Tennessee Department of Transportation for state project number 33-021-423304, federal project number ERTN192, PIN number 128-678.00, SR8, emergency slide repair retaining wall design.
I see no lights for Mr. Bailey. Is this in Hickson? What you're doing out in Hickson?
No, sir, this is Signal Mountain Road.
Signal Mountain?
Yes, sir, this is a fairly standard maintenance agreement between the city and TDOT for some details associated with the repair work that they did on Signal Mountain Boulevard.
Okay, all right. Still see no lights, so we'll move on. 7E, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Transportation to enter into a new services agreement with Novoa Global for traffic infraction detention and enforcement program, and substantially the form attached.
Is that it for you over the next 2 weeks, Mr. Bailey?
Yes, sir.
Well, all right. Well, before I let you go, though, anybody have any other questions for Councilman Bailey, Councilman Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me turn my button back on. Mr. Bailey, I had asked last week about the status of High Ridge Drive. Did you have a chance to look into that for me?
We talked about that this morning as well,
Yeah.
Mr. Councilman. I
Yeah, we
believe I've got an email drafted, and as soon as I get a chance, I'll get back to it
Okay,
and send it to you.
okay. And is there any update on the paving list?
No, sir. Unfortunately, the weather is such that we are likely not going to be paving until the spring, but we're going to be procurement, and we'll be ready when the weather's warm again.
Okay, so when would you expect a paving list to be out so that we could see what is to be paved?
I'll
in
have you a
spring?
schedule for sure next week, but as you know, we don't release the schedule. We have a list available for.
Yeah, I'm not asking
the
for the
bidding
schedule.
process.
I'm just asking for the list
Yes,
of
sir.
roads that will be paved. Is
We
that-
release the list when we bring you the contract, because we want to make sure that the pricing is not out of whack from what we estimate. We don't want to put streets on there that we have to peel back
Yeah.
from. But
And when did you say we would see that?
I'll get you a schedule for the whole process by next week.
Okay, you just gonna bring us the schedule?
Yes, sir.
That is not
It
the,
will include when the bids will be opened and roughly when we will bring them to you, including a list.
okay, that'd be helpful. I've got somebody that's just
Sure.
told me about a certain road. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Blythe, on that subject, are we any closer to identifying a vendor for the PCI survey?
No, sir. We're expecting to do that procurement here towards the end of the year as well.
Okay, so I shouldn't ask for another couple rounds?
You can ask as often as you like, but
I like that.
that's our plan is by the
I
end
like
of the
that.
year.
That's great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. I appreciate you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Bailey, you're fully expecting to get all your funding for this fiscal year spent before the end of this fiscal year, though,
Yes,
aren't you?
sir. Absolutely.
Okay. Still wondering how we can do it to where we don't miss these months in the summertime next year.
Yes, sir. I understand. We don't want to do this any more than you do, so we'll make sure we pay close attention to it next year and be paving in the fall.
Thank you very much. All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Holland. Well, I see no resolutions or ordinances for you today, but you seem to be kind of busy next week.
We are busy next week on your agenda, yes, sir.
All right, so we're going to start next week. Ordinances on first reading. 6A, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning a sewer easement located in the 5800 block of Highway 153 as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
And Mr. Chairman, I have several slides that just indicate where these sewer abandonments are located in case there are questions.
Great. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. This is more of an informational. When we abandon a sewer like this, obviously, what's the mechanical process? I mean, our sewer easement, what do we, how do we mark it publicly on the land, or is it, because it's still there, we don't go in and remove it or anything like
Yes.
that?
So a couple of things can happen. If there's a sewer there, then the developer would be responsible for relocating it. If there's not a sewer there, we're just abandoning an easement. So they can be either a reroute, they can reverse flow, or they can abandon the easement,
That was my next question, was,
Yep.
is it, you just shut it off?
depending on what, depending on what is there. So
Okay.
sometimes they have to reroute them, sometimes we reverse flow, or maybe there's not a sewer there, it was just an easement for,
So that pipe goes dry, so to speak.
it could, if there's a
and
pipe there and they need to
unused.
reroute it, right.
And does that ever reactivate to where we have to go in and inspect it to bring it back online for any reason? Or is that up to the developer to take that upon themselves?
Yeah, it's typically done by the property that's developed, for them to figure out how they want to reroute it in the future. If there's a future development and they need to do something different, it's up to the property development, or the property owner to develop that.
And how deep are these usually?
They vary.
I
Some
mean, are they
of them
6
might,
feet, 8 feet, 10 feet? They vary?
all, yes, sir.
Okay. So when a developer goes in, they know that that used to be there or is now abandoned, and they have to appropriately engineer that.
Yeah, and that's why we record these this way, so that we properly know what has happened, what happened now to abandon it, and what their future responsibilities will be.
Okay, very good. Thanks for the information. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Please read 6B.
An ordinance closing and abandoning a sewer easement located at 713 Hamilton Avenue as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
Don't see any questions. I don't even have any. 6C, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning a sewer easement located in the 1200 block of East 13th Street as detailed on the attached map.
You got a question? Wonderful.
Thank you.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. So what is the number one reason we abandon them?
Site development.
Site development?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because they need to either reroute, tie it in somewhere else, build a new one, da-da-da-da.
Yeah, they may need to build something over this line and may need to reroute where the line is located on the property. There's a number of reasons why they would request for the sewer to be abandoned.
Can you build on top of an abandoned?
You can build on top of an abandoned sewer easement, yes, sir. So that's typically what happens is people are trying to put a building on a property and it doesn't fit with the sewer line running under the building, which is not a good practice.
Right, right. So if a person wanted to know if there was an abandonment underneath their house, how would they do that?
Can I get back to you on the,
Sure.
on how we would, how exactly to find that out?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Feeling inquisitive today, Chairman.
Stump the Public Works Administrator today?
All right.
I have a feeling he's not finished. Please read 6D.
An ordinance closing and abandoning a sewer easement located in the 2200 block of Fagan Street as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
No questions? All right. All right, so we'll go to resolutions for next week, and then we'll start with 7G.
A resolution authorizing the award of contract number S17028201 to Thomas Brothers Construction Company, Inc. of Hickson, Tennessee, Mountain Creek Stream Restoration in the amount of $697,212.58, plus a contingency amount of $34,860, for a total amount of $732,072.58.
You okay? All right, great. 7H, please.
A resolution authorizing the street renaming the unopened, unnumbered block of Grove Street to the 1400 block of Stone Knot Way.
Okay. No lights, and I'm good. All right, thank you. Please read 7I.
A resolution authorizing the approval of change order number 1 final for JDH Company, Inc. of Chattanooga, Tennessee, relative to contract number Y19002201, replacement roofing system for Hickson YFD Center for an increased amount of $3,755, to release the remaining contingency amount of $20,245 for a revised contract amount of $248,268.
Okay, no lights. J, please.
A resolution authorizing the street name change on UTC campus between East 4th Street and Palmetto Street from the 400 to 499 block of Maple Street to the 400 to 499 block of Mox Alumni Drive, and renaming the 600 to 899 blocks of East 5th Street to the 600 to 899 blocks of Mox Alumni Drive.
Yes, I don't see any lights, but what's the process we go through now to do a renaming like this?
So a couple of things can happen. If it comes through to us from as a 911 issue, the city engineer goes through a process to inform city residents about the necessity to change the name of the street. Most of this is coordinated through our engineering office because of GIS and the coordination between 911 for emergency communications and response to these addresses. So formally, when we change a street name that is requested by the property owners, we have to notify the surrounding property owners. We take public comments. Sometimes we receive public comments from the property owners. In this case, UTC is the primary stakeholder. Mizpah congregation owns a cemetery adjacent here. So UTC requested the name change, as it indicates, Mox Alumni Drive. And there's typically not much opposition. The only opposition is normally around they don't like the name, and other feedback may be that they don't think that the name change is necessary, but we most of the time, we're in close coordination with 911 Communication District.
Okay, here he is, Councilman Ledford.
All right, Chairman, I just wanted to make a big thank you as a member of the University of Tennessee Chattanooga Alumni Board of Directors. This is something we've been working on, and I want to thank Councilman Byrd for his help and assistance leadership in getting this done. So thank you, sir.
Wow.
Go Mox.
All right. We'll Oh, wow. Man, we had to go there.
There's that new Democratic leadership.
Yeah, okay, let's move on. 7K, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to execute the consent to assignment of all purchases order for vendor number 376308 TWH Architects, Inc. to MBI Companies, Inc. relative to purchase order number 552219 for on-call architectural services, contract number E18007-101.
I don't see any questions. Let's go to L, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew contract number E18009-101 on-call blanket contracts for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and engineering services for year 2 of 4 with Campbell and Associates, Inc. and March Adams and Associates, Inc. for year 2 of a 4-year term with these 2 professional firms estimated at $200,000 total annually for use by all departments.
All right, see no questions. M, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew contract number E18007-101 on-call blanket contracts for architectural services for year 2 of 4 with Allen and Hochschild, Inc., Artec Design Group, Inc., Dorothy Henley and Wilkerson Architects, PLLC, Franklin Architects, Rardin and Carroll Architects, Inc., and MBI Company, Inc., formerly TWH Architects, Inc., for year 2 of a 4-year term with these 6 professional firms estimated at $1,250,000 total annually for use by all departments.
Councilman Gilbert.
Just curious, how do you choose which one? I mean, all of these are different architects, are they expertise, or how do you go about saying A, B, C, or is it bidded out, or?
Yeah, so typically we look at the type of work that they've performed in the past, and what, maybe if they have a particular architect that's done specific work on, say, a gymnasium or an office complex. So we look at the type of work that they're most typically would perform. We also try to rotate as much as we can amongst blanket contracts insofar as they are qualified to do the work and that they are the best qualified to perform that function for us. Some of it has to do with scope and scale of the work, so that some of the larger offices get some larger projects. Smaller offices may get smaller type of projects.
It's also based off performance too, based off previous performance, correct?
That can be taken into consideration. Yes, sir.
All right, thanks.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on to N, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew on-call blanket contracts for structural engineering services, contract number E18008-101, for year 2 of 4 with Allen and Hochschild, Inc., Alfred Benesch and Company, CTI Engineering, Inc., Estates Russell Engineering, Inc., Integrated Structure Services, Inc., March Adams and Associates, Inc., and Volkert, Inc. for year 2 of a 4-year term with these 7 professional firms estimated at $200,000 total annually for use by all departments.
And finally, O, please.
A resolution authorizing the Department of Public Works to enter into a public-private partnership agreement with Waterways, formerly Caribbean Sea, Inc., Caribbean Student Environmental Alliance, for continued development of the My Tennessee and Adopt a Waterway program over a 2-year term for the water quality program for an amount not to exceed $60,000.
You want to explain what that is?
Yes, sir. This is an extension of a program that we've had in place for quite a while. It's similar to Adopt a Highway that Scenic Cities Beautiful program operates for us, but this is Adopt a Waterway. So it is Organizations who are interested in sponsoring a particular waterway can do work on that waterway. We coordinate that with this group, and we pay them a fee for arranging those types of activities for those volunteer groups, and also monitoring of activity in the waterway.
So the cleanups we do at some of the creeks around town, do they have anything to do with that?
Sometimes, if it's a community-involved group, this group helps to organize those activities.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Holland? I see none. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Council.
This tells me we're getting ready to go into Youth and Family Development Committee. The best department we have at the city, the Youth and Family Development Committee. Public Works and Transportation accepted. Thank you. Now, you can't say anything about Trump in your chair.
I'm not sure.
In that chair.
Can I get approval of the minutes? Thank you. Man, for the first time ever, y'all finally let me get it out. I appreciate that. Improvements. All right, well, we're finna hear from the best department in the city of Chattanooga, Youth and Family Development. Come on, what you got for us, Coach?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council. It's always a pleasure to come before you and give you an update, committee reports on some of the outstanding things that's going on in our department. I'd like to make this announcement next week, November the 18th through the 22nd. Many of you probably have received invitations to attend the conference that YFD is hosting, the Tennessee Parks and Recreation Conference at the Trade Center. And we hope some of you can drop by to support that conference. We got people from all over the state of Tennessee that will be there, and we'll be showcasing our work. Many of our staff people will be hosting and participating and presenting at that conference. And it will be nice to see some of our council representatives. I know our chair lady will be there to support us in that effort, so you all are welcome. November the 18th, starting at 8 o'clock that morning, and it'll go through 4 o'clock each evening through the 22nd. The 18th through the 22nd. Okay, so for your pleasure today in our education and information, we got Mr. Gary Rudolph, who's here, oversees our CAP program, the Chattanooga Ambassadors Program. And as you all remember, this is one of our Starship initiatives from 6 years ago when we first started to get young people involved in leadership training and development, and to help them see the city of Chattanooga as a leader, and also they would give back as leaders, helping other young people become leaders. Mr. Rudolph has brought one of his CAP graduates as well, participants, Terry Wright, to be part of his presentation as well. So thank you all. Mr. Rudolph, would you please come and enlighten us, please?
All right, good afternoon. All right, I'm gonna test this out, make sure I can get it right. All right. I didn't get it right. F right? All right, oh, there we go. All right, thank you all for the opportunity to update you on the CAP program, Chattanooga Ambassador Program. Not sure if I have enough material to cover the full hour and a half, but I'm gonna try to get this done in about an hour. That's okay? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. All right, so to talk about CAP, under the Leadership Development Division is where you find CAP, and what we're responsible for is training leaders, as Coach talked about. This young man that you see featured, Renus Evans, he's actually at Middle Tennessee State University. We updated that late this afternoon, so, but he was one of our star students in the CAP Generation 5, a student from Brainerd High School, and doing very well. We're really proud of this young man, and we usually use his image on our marketing material because he's always a sharp dresser, so. All right, so as we stated, CAP is a leadership and character building initiative. What we tried to do when we brought CAP to fruition was to surround young people with mentors and peer mentors. On the left, you'll see a group of young ladies that are seated. They were previous graduates, and what their role is to help usher new recruits into the leadership process and to be there for them. Sometimes the messenger is important, so they'll hear from, the students will hear from us, but the young people that graduate from the program come back and talk to the new recruits. For our boys, you'll see a young man, this was actually our very first recruit, and what we did with him was try to surround him with a support system, and we refer to it as his ecosystem. We always asked him where did he go for help? And so these were some of the first supporters that he had to help get him through our program. All right, any great initiative or business starts with a good team. And so you'll see the team there. I always want to give credit where credit is due. These young people that you see featured there are the staff, and they do tremendous work and meaningful work. So I'm really proud to have them aboard the team to do this great work. All right, Councilman Oglesby, we've been knowing each other a long time. You might not believe this, but I read somewhere that you will be known by the problem you solve. And that's a very compelling statement. You'll be known by the problem you solve. So when we prepare our BFO, one of the questions that we get asked each year is, what problem are you solving for the city? And so we just began to think about what problem are we solving at all. We have 4 goals with the CAP initiative: college readiness, workforce readiness, outlook, and reducing risk behavior. As we've had some lessons learned over the last 6 years, when you think about college readiness and workforce readiness, we've come to discover that it's really not about college, and it's really not about the workforce. When we think about college readiness, what the students have told us as we've prepared them for college, it was that financial literacy that you taught us. It was budgeting. It was about resilience. It was about being prepared, how to get up in the morning. So it really had little to do with college. It was all about being ready for that moment, because most students that walk away from college do so somewhere around the 2nd semester. So our goal is to prepare them for everything that might be thrown at them once they're on that college campus. The other piece is the workforce readiness. Seldom is it about work. You'll see studies that will tell you that what's going on with young people today in terms of the workforce is that lack of soft skills. So what we spend our time when we work with young people is preparing them to not just get the job, but to be able to hold on to that job. So it's seldom about the workforce or the work. It's about those soft skills that they'll need to keep that job. As far as outlook, a number of our young people have a bleak outlook on what life will bring before they turn 30. And when they tell their stories, we hear it. And so we work with those young people to have a better outlook on their life. And we do so by helping them to reduce their risk behavior. So when they come into our program, we conduct a fundamental assessment to find out where they are, what gets in your way, what's going to trip you up along life's journey. And we help them across the 48 weeks that we work with them to reduce their risk behaviors. All right, so CAP has about a 96.7% success rate. That's pretty good, and we've done that over a 6-year period. We've slipped a little bit. We were about at 98% this time 2 years ago. 76% of the students go to college, 18% of them go directly into the workforce, and about 2% go into the military. And we have a few that walk away. We push them really hard, and there's some who say, this isn't for me, and we respect that, but we still have a very high success rate with this program. So we do train them over 48 weeks, and it's intense training. They are with us 3 weeks out of the month, and you'll see some of the things that we do. We established this program in 2013. We graduate Generation 6 in January. We've prepared over 200 teen leaders for Chattanooga. They're ready to go. They're ready to step into some roles and do some things that are really positive for our city. Additionally, these students serve between 950 and 1,000 students annually. So they'll do that at several nonprofits, at the youth and family development centers, and throughout our city. So they have that type of impact out in the community. And you'll see we serve a number of nonprofits, and we conduct about 8 service projects annually. Part of the experience for these young people is they go on college visits, and you'll see they were at Vanderbilt University. The presenter this day said to us that we had a young person with at least a 32 on the ACT, they would provide scholarship to them, no questions asked. And we had one young man, he did not attend that trip, and he elected to go to school in New York. So, but that was pretty cool. And for those of you who've been around for a while, on the right, you'll see the presenter providing public speaking training. If you all know James Holloway, I think he's over at Air Pollution. Jim Holloway's been around a long time. 25 years ago, I took the Toastmasters course with Jim Holloway, learning public speaking, and here we are, and Jim is still teaching young people. I'm involved in him teaching young people public speaking, so that's pretty cool. All right, one of the other things that we do is we send these young people out into the community to disconnected communities. A lot of our public housing sites we refer to as disconnected communities or underserved, and a number of the children from those public housing sites, they can't make it to the YFD center, or they can't make it to places where there are care and responsible adults. So they'll have these little small box centers, and they'll have a couple of people who will open the doors for them. Well, we're able to send our CAP students out, and they actually provide recreation, just social activities, opportunity to sit down and talk with youth, understand, what's going on with them. And it's been meaningful to have these young people go out to East Lake and Greenwood Terrace and Wheeler Homes and just be there, because, to see your contemporary, to see someone that you'd like to grow up and be like, to learn that they've gone to college and, are doing good things in the community, it's meaningful. So we really like the opportunity to send our young people out to those communities. We always ask our young people to leave a legacy. So the young man that you see on the right, Namani Thomas, he is a percussionist at Bethel University, and each summer he comes back and goes out to Second Missionary Baptist Church, and he teaches drum lessons to boys 12 and under. And so he's leaving a great legacy each summer, coming back doing that. students that we work with, a lot of them are really smart. You see the young men on the left. Those young men attend Alabama A&M, UTC, and UT Knoxville. The young man, the third one in the blue shirt with his arms crossed there, he had an internship at Dollywood this summer, also interned at the Tennessee Valley Credit Union, and he actually gave a tour to some students from the CAP program this summer. And the young lady on the right, to the far right, you might have seen her featured in the Chronicle. Starsha Davis, she's really smart. She's majoring in neuroscience, and her minor is in Japanese, and she's actually going to work with Doctors Without Borders on next year. So we're really proud of really smart students from our program. Okay, so as Coach gave you all an invitation to the TRPA conference, I'm going to invite you all to our graduation, January 25th. It's going to be at the Avondale Center, and we'd like for you all to come and hear from our young people and let them tell you what the CAP experience has been like. And I'm going to yield to one of our CAP graduates to just let her tell you a little bit more about CAP. All right, thank you all.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Wright, and I'm a graduating senior biology major. And I'm a graduating senior biology major attending Spelman College on a Fulbright, and I'm also a Generation 2 CAP student. The opportunity that was afforded to me by being in the CAP program, it definitely came at a time where I most needed it. I was in 10th grade, it was a rough time in life. And I was afforded mentorship and guidance and support, and I gained leadership skills. I gained a group of sisters in the process as well. And the CAP really groomed me to understand that there was more to life. There was an opportunity for me to actually go out and do great things. I wasn't a product of my environment, yet I was a force to be reckoned with, and I could move forward and confidently say that, the experience that I gained being in the program was able to get me to the point where I'm at today. And even having the chance, once I matriculated out, to come back and give back to the program and serve the students that came behind me has been impactful. Being able to mentor Generation 3, Generation 4, 5, and to see Generation 6 about to come out and usher in Generation 7. It's been so meaningful to me because I know that the work that I've done with them, they're going to remember. And I enjoy having the opportunities when they actually say, hey, we'd like to have a college tour. Can we have our girls come to Spelman, and you give them a tour? And I can happily say yes and take time out of my day to talk to these students and guide them and answer questions and ensure that, they know they have a sister that is more than willing and ready to help them with whatever they decide to do when it comes to college. The CAP has especially been beneficial to me because you gain leadership skills and you gain these character building skills. And I've been able to not only gain those, but I've applied them as well. You get the tenacity, you get the resilience. Going to college was difficult for me because I just had a strong bond with my mom. Going away, you don't always have that drive to stay that long because we were a family unit. But being in CAP taught me independence is crucial, and it's needed if you're going to ensure your successfulness in life. And the hard skills that I've learned, the soft skills, they've prepared me. I know what I've learned gave me a chance to secure an internship that pushed me towards my career aspirations of getting into nonprofit business management. And the skills that I've learned, I've been able to add into my resume that I've used to apply for grad school, which I'm currently doing right now. So I'm going to get my MPA in with a concentration in nonprofit business management. And that's all because, you know, CAP gave me that groundwork, that basis for like to have that leadership that I'm able to carry out. So the program's been very beneficial. I can't say that I'd be where I am if I haven't had the chance to go through and be mentored and to mentor and serve. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all you do. Again, we got a few questions for you.
Graduation starts at 11 o'clock, from 11 until 1 o'clock,
Okay.
Avondale Center.
Councilman Gilbert.
How you doing, Mr. Rudolph? Thank you for bringing the young ladies, giving a testimony of the program. On the CAP 1, Class 1, Class 2, do you have a number on how many kids finished college in Class 1, Class 2, and the amount of kids that was in both classes, what percentage that was, and also all the workforce? I know you might not have it now, but can you get that so we can see more people like this young lady come up and speak on behalf of CAP?
Okay, so Class 1, and initially, CAP, when we started CAP, we were asked to identify those students who, without these resources, might not be successful. And so when we went to the schools and the nonprofits and we said that, it was interpreted a little differently from the way we really meant it. And so we were given, students who were a little more difficult to ensure that success. Our original class was 25 boys. We later integrated girls into it, so we had 50 in Class 1 total. And you would think that that group would not have been as successful, but those numbers that I gave you are about the same. About 76% of them went to college. And we were really surprised when we looked back at that number that that group was just as successful as this group. So, and I don't know what to make of that. What our lesson learned, just that every child wants the same thing. They want to be successful. And we gave them just as much as we give, this generation.
Yeah, I was looking for more so of how many kids finished college versus went to college on the first and second group. Again, you might not give me the numbers now, but can you get the numbers? Because it makes a lot difference to, I guess, council, to myself, knowing that as much money we put into the program, that the program is very successful.
Right.
And also in the workforce. It doesn't have to be college. It can be also workforce. How many kids have continued in the workforce currently it's been like 4 years, 5 years for some of them. Are you still working? Are you doing well? That type of stuff. Because that means a lot to me.
Right.
To know that we're doing something for the young people.
Right. I'd hate to throw a number out to you right now. I can get back to you with an accurate number, but I'll tell you that it's higher than you would imagine, because we've been really surprised at the success of the students, even in completing what we started with them.
I appreciate it. I commend that young lady for coming up and speaking, and you did a very good job, and hope you go farther in your career.
All right.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Gary, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Gary and I go back 20 years.
Long time.
Back about 20 years. Everything you've touched has been, I think, an incredible experience for others. So thank you for what you're doing with CAP. I had a couple of logistical questions, and one of those was, you're touching 950 to 1,000 lives in this program?
The CAP students are.
That's amazing.
Yep.
And the message that they're bringing, what are the biggest challenges that you find in growing this program and the obvious positive results that are coming out of it? So what is your biggest hurdle, so to speak? And I know that you're probably already starting to write your BFO, and I'm curious, without giving it away.
Okay. Well, every year, when we tout the success of the program, we get asked the question about, can this be scaled? with 4 staff people, you want to make sure that it's a quality program, that it's not all about the number, the quantity. But we believe that we figured out a way to scale this, because we work with 30 students at a time in the intense training, and then we have about 15 graduate students that will come back and help. But we'll work with a nonprofit and we'll invite those children to come and be a part of a training that's offered. We believe we can do more of that, so the experience that a lot of these CAP students have, students throughout the community can have that same experience. We just scale it up and then use some of our previous generation students to help us with, just being ears and eyes in the room. So, we could work with larger groups with the support of our graduate students and volunteers throughout the community. So that's the big challenge, is just how to scale that and make it work.
Very good. Well, listen, I just want to say thank you for the presentation today, the great work that your ambassadors are doing, and this is an absolute testament that sometimes, in this case especially, the messenger can be just as important as the message.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you again, Mr. Gary, for all you do. We're making sure that YFD is great for everyone in the CAP program. I had my opportunity to come mentor a couple of them, and they're doing great still, to moved on to college and employment opportunities and serving their communities as well. So thank you. I continue to support you, and most definitely many blessings to come for you.
All right. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to adjourn to the Special Planning and Zoning Committee.
It's going to be hard to follow.
Oh, my goodness, this is very short.
Yeah.
Sorry. There we go. Now I know how you feel, Chairman. Okay, Brian, if you'll look into our packet today, this is welcome everybody to a special planning and zoning committee meeting today. Thank you very much. All in favor? Very good. I don't know if we have any minutes. That's okay. Yeah. So what we're doing today in this meeting is, you'll see in your packet that we have ordinances and resolutions. We're not actually going over those again because I just kind of like John Bridger.
Right.
We're not going to do it. No, these are on our agenda today. So.
Put John on the spot.
Yeah. So, Brian, you're going to give us a quick report on the public hearing that we held last Tuesday regarding our National Resources Assessment.
Correct.
And
It'll be very brief.
I'm going to stop there and let you take over.
And this is no disrespect to Councilwoman Coonrod. YFD is probably the best committee, but nobody can pack a room like planning and zoning. I mean, as of last week, you saw how packed it was. So it's going to be hard.
Touche.
The room was packed and outside. That's hard
Amen.
to beat that.
Yeah.
No, but it's hard to pass. I mean, that was a good program from Gary.
I'm gonna have to use that again.
That is good, right? We can pack the room, good and bad.
All right, thanks, Brian.
So I'll give you a brief overview. A lot has been mentioned about the study and how quick the study seemed to be put together. So just to give a quick reminder, the initial public hearing to start this process started on October 30th of 2018. Following that meeting, we had a city council request in December, I think it was December 18th of 2018, to direct RPA to move forward with an assessment of our environmental resources. So we started that. One of the things we first did, we established an advisory committee. I think we have two of the members here today. Again, we'd like to thank their time and assistance on that committee. That was a 12-member committee who was a sounding board that consisted of engineer, developers, home builders, realtors, and private citizens. We had about 12 meetings with that advisory committee over the study period. We also took 7 meetings. We also took the advisory committee on a site tour of sites in Chattanooga, just so we can see what the concerns and issues were. We also created a technical advisory committee, which consisted of city engineer, UTC engineer of geology, We also have a stormwater engineer, public works, and a consulting engineer, sort of a sounding board also to help us assess our environmental resources. We had about 4 meetings with that committee. With all that, we started drafting the report. It took quite some time to do the assessment, looking at where the steep slopes are and floodplains and where the development's occurring. So finally, we finished the draft report in September, and that report was released on September 27th to our technical or our advisory committee for their review and comments. The report was released to the public on October 15th of 2019, and then Emily presented the draft report October 29th at the Strategic Planning and Zoning Committee. And then we had the public hearing last week on November 5th. So that's where we are today to give you basically an update on what we heard last week. These are some of the bigger topics. One of the things that was mentioned last week through the public hearing was there was concerns on mass grading and clearing of sites. We also heard about loss of tree coverage and scenic views because of mass clearing and grading. We also heard erosion control, stormwater runoff. One of the things we did hear a lot about was lack of enforcement of existing regulations. Why should we adopt new regulations if we're not enforcing the existing regulations? That was brought up by the public, as well as some of our associations like the Realtors Association, the Home Builders Association, and the Association of General Contractors mentioned that enforcement was a concern, and we've heard that. And then also had a concern with too much regulation. Another concern that we heard was lots of record. These are existing lots or single lots that have already been recorded. We need to be very careful and mindful of whatever ordinance we adopt. We don't take away somebody's private property rights, but at the same time, we also have to protect the adjacent property owners and their rights. One of the things that was mentioned at the public hearing, no matter what ordinance we adopt, we need to do some type of notification to all property owners that would be affected by this ordinance. Also was mentioned was an economic study. We need to do an economic study to see how these ordinances would impact development, housing supply, cost, etc. One of the things that was mentioned was also some kind of civil discourse, getting all the groups together, working together to solve this problem. Instead of being in silos, as Councilwoman Burge says, let's work together. Let's get a group together and all come together to solve this issue. We also heard that we need to balance development needs in the city with city tourism objectives. One of the things which is still we need to clarify is what is a steep slope? What's that number? Is it 15%, 25, 30? What is that number? We need to clarify what is considered too steep. Floodplain regulations, we need to be a little bit stronger on that. Some of the folks felt that we didn't have enough regulations, or proposing was very limited on floodplain regulations. One of the comments too was staff did not address all. The Home Builders Association did provide staff some comments or suggested recommendations. Their comments felt that we did not address all the comments that they provided us. One of the things that was also mentioned was right now the process is to put zoning conditions on properties. That is often problematic, and it's hard to know from a development standpoint when you're zoning a piece of property and on the back end conditions are placed on your development. It's very difficult for you as a designer to design that property. We also heard to promote more development on flatter areas in the city, such as Avondale, East Chattanooga. Those lands are currently flat and ready to be developed on. That was one thing we heard from several community members. And one thing that did not make the slide, I forgot about it, was a 6-month grace period. Whenever we adopt the regulations, make sure they're not enforceable today. Make sure there's like some kind of grace period like we did form-based code. Once they were adopted, they took effect 6 months later. So with that was just a brief overview of the comments that we received last week. I'm going to talk briefly about our next steps. We heard the public, so we're going to take a deeper dive into our existing regulations. Go back to this. Actually, we're going to take a deeper dive into several things and see if these are addressed through our current regulations. We're going to look at enforcement and existing regulations, Do we have any type of ordinance that limits mass grading and clearing, tree canopy protection, protection of scenic views, erosion control and stormwater runoff? We call this site construction management or premature clearing of sites, and then floodplain regulations. If you can see on this picture on the right, this is an example of some, I think, the public's concerns. The top picture is, this is all the same site. The top picture was taken in 2014 from Google. You can see there was a home on that site. In 2017, that same site has since been cleared and was ready for development. And then in 2019, that's the same site sitting there today. And actually, I think there's a condition on your agenda tonight to be lifted on the same site. But this is some of the concerns you're hearing from the neighborhood of sites being cleared with no development plan immediate for these sites. No, this is hard to read. I'm going to hand this out. This chart is in page 57 of the existing assessment report. It looked at existing regulations that we have on the books and some of the concerns we've heard from the residents and whether the existing regulations met that concern. If it did, was it adequate? That was in page 57 of the report. I know it's hard to read, so that's why I'm passing it out on the back of this handout. But we will be looking at this a little bit deeper. I also put together a very brief outline of our next steps. And this is also a handout in front of you too. It has more questions we're going to ask and more action steps. But briefly, for the next 3 months, November to January, we're going to do education, evaluation of our tools and enforcement. Starting in February, we'll do some type of what we call framing a path. That's sort of moving forward with a direction of tools and enforcement and how we should begin to explore those. March and April, we're calling that exploring, evaluating standards. How do the new tools and standards perform on different site scenarios? What is the impact of these new tools on housing yield? This is where we'll get together with a committee to draft the tools and see how these tools work on a site. Can it be done? Do we need to change things? That's where that civil discourse will come in. Let's all work together to solve the problem. Then April, we'll frame the ordinance standards, sort of finalize those. Right now, they'll be in a rough draft coming out of April, but March and April. But April, we'll be finalizing those standards. And then with May, if we're ready to move forward, we'll draft the ordinance or other tools, present through a public hearing with City Council. We'll present a public hearing at Planning Commission. And then once those tools are ready, we'll move to the adoption process. So next steps for this next 3 months. Sometime, I know it's the holiday season, so it's going to be a little tough to schedule some of these meetings, but ideally November to January, we would like to schedule an education session with City Council, basically to provide an overview of the existing regulations. That's pretty evident the past couple of meetings we've had that we need a general education on what we have on the books and what's being enforced and how enforcement is occurring. I think that's needed for council, as well as staff. Are the existing regulations and enforcement practices addressing the problem or citizen concerns? That's one of the things we'd like to address through this education session. And then what potential new tools or enforcement practices would you like to see adopted to address any identified concerns or issues? That'll be part of this education session we'll schedule in the next couple months. Also, working with LDO, we'll look at enforcement protocols. Are the fines appropriate? What about staffing levels? Is that appropriate? Or do you need more staff to enforce what's on the books? That type of questions we need to answer. You heard some of it today, but we need to take a deeper dive into that. Is there an enforcement problem? So that's what we'll do in the next couple months. Finally, this also depends on weather and everybody's schedules. We would like to take the City Council, who so wishes to go, on a site tour of Chattanooga sites and to see the problems and concerns and see the existing regulations. Is there a problem? Let's try to answer that question. Maybe there's not a problem. Maybe there is. If there is, what tools can we look at drafting to fix that problem? So we'd like to take you on a tour of the City of Chattanooga sites. And finally, we're also, if you like a certain tool, we did have 6 peer review cities that we looked at. It's provided in the report. We would like to move forward with scheduling a peer review or site visits of 2 cities. I'm thinking perhaps Knoxville and Asheville. I think that's probably after the first year, once we go through the education component and enforcement. And then if you decide that you still need these tours, we'd be glad to try to schedule those. But that's where we are today. That's the overview of what we heard last week and our next steps moving forward. So with that, I'll answer any questions that people may have.
Brian, thank you very much for that overview. I feel like you've covered a tremendous amount of material that we've all had concerns about, and I'm actually seeing no light, so I'm going to kind of wrap us up here if I can. I think you're on the right track. I think you've heard what we've all said in previous comments. I feel like we definitely took everything to heart that the public hearing brought forth to us. And and the existing regulations and enforcement pitfalls, which I think we all agree on, need to be identified first. I mean, if we can't fix what we can fix easily and identify it now, then, you know, it's true. Why would we put more laws into effect that we're just going to ignore?
Right. And John reminded me of one question too before I forget.
Sure.
On the education session, I know your schedules are very difficult and it's hard. Would it be best if we schedule a separate meeting, and this probably have to work out in the field, but maybe holding it at DRC on a different day? Do we hold it here at the 1:30 agenda session? 'Cause I think it's going to be a lot of material to cover in an hour, hour and a half. Maybe it's something we can work together in the next couple of weeks, just trying to figure out how we schedule this.
We'll work out some details on
Yeah.
that, given how much time you think you're going to need. And then I'll get with my colleagues and we'll figure out the best course.
Yeah, we want to make sure it's doable for everybody and work on a
Sure.
big schedule.
Sure. So I like where you're going. I personally, I can only speak for myself, obviously, but I think that we're moving in a direction that's opening up conversation. And I like that everyone's got a seat at the table. I would like to say that to the LDO staff, this is a great opportunity for you. So take advantage of it. This is an incredible opportunity for the city to really address something that has, I think, been in the room for a long time. It's caused some angst. It's caused community discourse. It's caused neighbors and have great passion. And I think that we need to get something right. We need some changes. I think it starts with our fundamentals. It starts with reviewing what's on the books. And I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear the conversation. And I appreciate each and every one of my colleagues who I know have contributed and continue to contribute with meetings of their own to educate themselves. And I'm just very glad that we're going to do this the right way.
Right.
And we're going to involve everyone. Everyone gets a voice and everyone gets a seat at the table with this. And I think some good work has been done, Brian.
Yeah.
I really do.
I think so, and that's just a reminder again what that report was intended to do. It never was intended to say, these are the ordinances, therefore go ahead and adopt these. This was intended to say what the
Right.
problem is, what we have, and now what.
Right, which is why I read my statement in the opening of the public hearing, was to make sure that people understood
Right.
that this was not a ordinance that was up for adoption. So, great work moving forward. Seeing no other lights for questions or comments, so if that's the case, I will adjourn us until 6.
Okay, we'll set one up. I'll get the conference. Okay. All right, I'll let Councilmember know. All right, thank you. Thanks, Councilman.
Hi, sorry. Getting caught up on, you know how it goes. How are you? Good. Oh, does combining, are we bundling something? And is that 250, does that wrap arms around it enough? Are we, basically, is that 250 just scattered out here, here, and here?
So what's happened is several vendors have been merged into single square. So in the past, we had single blanket contracts, and we're consolidating it 250?
That's what was in our
Yes,
packet.
that is, yes.
It's like going from 80 to 250.
Right.
And anytime I see a number like that, I'm like, just want to kind of know, make sure so when someone asks me, I can go, oh, well, they've bundled all this, it added up to 250, and it's just one payment or one vendor versus scattering it out to several.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
It's one blanket to cover multiple applications.
Gotcha.
That used to be under singles.
Some of it
Yes.
always helps
Right,
ask
yes.
questions.
No, thank you for asking.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.